I had connections. I was trying to get big market, and it would have
Yeah.
happened. But once my kids were born, it was like
Yeah. It changes
decision to
things, man.
stay. I wanted to be dad,
Same. That's why I stopped doing music. That's why I
yeah.
stopped touring, because I was having my son. My son was being born, and I just didn't want to be that guy that was on the road all the time. I knew guys in bands that had kids, and it was always a conflict of interest. They were always saying how they miss things. They miss their kid's recital, or they miss their kid's soccer game, or some of them miss their kid's birth. Like,
Yeah.
to be on tour, like, fuck, who cares?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it was just me. I needed that. I needed that to shift gears and to do different things. And I'm glad I did, man. I'm glad.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you've had a wonderful radio career. I mean, it's funny because there's so many people here that know who you are for your alignment with rock radio, the Comic Cons and stuff like that.
Yeah,
There's buddies of mine that not in recovery or anything. They follow you because it's like
that's
talented
cool.
guy.
I
You've
mean,
achieved some great stuff, and
it's funny because I never wanted to be in broadcasting. I never
huh,
want no, I didn't go to broadcasting school. I didn't do anything of that nature. But I can tell you, every time that we would go into a radio station to do an interview with Slaves on Dope, I loved the vibe. I loved it. I loved it. Every time we would go in, I would be like, man, this looks like fucking fun. It really looks like fun. And the guys would always be, or the girls, like whoever, the people that would be welcoming us in would always be, it looked like they were having fun and they were happy to have people in. You know what it's like when you have a guest in the studio. It's like so much fun because it breaks up the monotony of you just being in there alone, talking to a fucking microphone in an empty room. So whenever we would have a guest come in, or whenever I would have a guest come in, it would always be this like, this high moment. So I remember going in and doing interviews and loving it. And there was this one station in particular, I have to shout them out because they probably planted a little bit of a seed deep in me. WJJO in Madison, Wisconsin.
okay,
They supported Slaves on Dope big time. They were one of the, because we were a heavy band, man. Like we were like I was screaming. Like it wasn't, we weren't, but we had our moments, and they really banged a couple of our songs a lot, and it really really helped us. And there was a guy named Randy Hawk and a guy named Oz, and both of them were just awesome with us. And we continued, like, even when Slaves on Dope got back together, we did a couple of radio shows. We flew out for Taste of Madison, and they flew us in, and we did a show with DMC. And it was just those early times going in and being on tour and going into Madison and doing the radio shows and co-hosting a show. And I loved it, but I never thought I would do it.
yeah.
Never thought I would do it. It was never like, oh, I want to do that one day. But I just remember, hey, I like that. That was fun. So
And
it just I literally stumbled into radio, man. I stumbled into radio.
same, but how for you?
I I had so when I quit Slaves on Dope, I went and worked at a sunglass hut. I literally went from being like on the road 10 months a year, came home for Christmas, was with my girlfriend who was pregnant. And I said, look, I can't go back out on the road. I was supposed to go to Europe for 3 months. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This has got to stop, because I'm not going to be that guy who's going to be away from his kid. And I got a job at a sunglass hut because one of her friends worked at Lens Crafters, and she's like, my friend can probably get you a job there. And I was working at the mall in my neighborhood, managing a sunglass hut. And I remember I was so proud, because when you're a musician, if you really, really want a musician that works at it and does it and really sacrifices things and moves places to go be a musician, um, you don't usually have much job experience besides any shitty job that'll keep you for as long as they can until you leave for tour, and then they fire you. So I didn't have much job experience. I didn't have much education. Um, I didn't have a lot of things that a lot of people are equipped with. Like I didn't have, university education. I had high school, and I had a couple of years of junior college, which we here call CHOM. I went to theater school, and I did a 3-year theater program that I didn't finish. And that was when I was at the end of my drinking. But having said all that, I didn't ever think I could do anything or do anything else but music. That's all I was. I was like, this is it. Tunnel vision, blinders on. I'm going to be a musician. And when I had to step away from that, and I got a job managing a retail store, I was so proud of myself because I was like, wow, I did this. I just walked into this and I got it. And then after doing it for almost a year, they offered me the biggest store downtown. And then at one point they wanted me to be a multi-store manager and maybe be a regional manager where I would run 26 stores and stuff. And I was like, wow, I was so proud of myself that I was able to do all this. But I never thought that broadcasting would be around the corner, and I did that. Then I ended up going working for my dad, who had a transport company, and I hated my life, but I did it because my dad needed help. And I figured, well, if I'm going to work, I might as well work in a family business, So I kind of sold my soul to the devil with that one and worked there for quite a few years. But it was at that point where I got back together with my guitar player and we started talking again and we started making music. So I was spending late nights at his place in his studio recording the next Slaves on Dope album. And someone had mentioned to me along the way that you'd be a really good commentator. Like you'd be a great, columnist, like you'd be great on TV just talking about pop culture because you're into movies, you're into music, you're into all this stuff. So I ended up starting to do that at a local TV station. And one of the guys that I did it with worked in radio. And he had mentioned that they were looking for an overnight guy at Virgin, which was Virgin Radio, which was the pop station, So I did a demo for Virgin. Virgin heard it. And they gave it to the rock station and they called me and they were like, we heard your demo. Would you want to come in and maybe talk about a position? I was like, okay. And that was it. And I ended up working overnights, midnight to 5 a.m. for a year. And I worked at my dad's trucking company for almost a year. I did both, where I would work from midnight to 5 a.m., go to sleep at around 6, wake up at around 11:30 and go in for 12 to 5. So it was just a grind, man. And then at one point I just walked away from my dad's company and went into radio full time. But I really had no experience, man. I had none. So that's why, it's funny because my kids make fun of me because I got my knuckles tattooed this year and I got self-made because I really feel like I am, and I know a lot of people in recovery will go, that's not true. It's your higher power that helped you with all that. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who makes the decisions.
Right.
So this part of my life, no one gave me a hand with anything, man. Like everything I've done in the last 13 years in terms of like my media career is all me. Yeah. It's all me just, trusting in my higher power, trusting in making the right decisions and just taking the next indicated step. Yeah. Next indicated direction, following it. And it just led me here. And it's also opportunities, like taking hold of it and saying, hey, I work at a radio station now. I've got a platform. Let me start to do other content. Let me start to do movie stuff. And I remember they didn't understand what I was doing. Like I was calling up Warner Brothers and going, hey, I'd love to do some music, like some interviews with some, movie people. Like I love this stuff. And I created this whole thing where, I ended up starting to do all this stuff that I love.
Yeah.
And no one in the market was really doing much. There was a few people doing it, but I found a way to carve kind of my own, pave my own lane in a way. And it's great because everything I do now work-wise, I love. Yeah. And radio's kind of become, and this is crazy to say, but radio's kind of become my day job, which is an amazing day job. You know what I mean? So It's grateful, man, grateful. But that's all because I stopped drinking. All of that is because I stopped drinking. If I wouldn't have stopped drinking, and I wouldn't have been in tune with and sensitive to all those things. And I don't know, who knows where I would have been.
This is the Knocking Doors Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knocking Doors Down is all about.